The morning started like any other on Luna Command. Admiral Chen Sato was drinking his coffee and reading reports when the alarms began screaming across the base. Every screen in the command center lit up with the same impossible sight: massive alien ships dropping out of hyperspace around Earth. Chen set down his cup with steady hands. He had trained for this moment his entire life, but seeing it happen still made his heart race. The ships were enormous, each one longer than 10 city blocks. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal, gleaming in the sunlight as they took positions around Earth. "How many?" Chen asked his communications officer. 12 main ships, sir, plus at least 50 smaller ones." Chen nodded. The aliens had brought enough firepower to turn Earth into space dust, but that was exactly what humanity had been expecting. On Earth's surface, people stopped what they were doing to stare at the sky. In New York, traffic came to a halt as drivers got out of their cars. In Tokyo, office workers pressed against windows. In London, children pointed up at the alien shapes visible even through the daylight sky. The alien fleet finished positioning itself. Then a voice spoke in perfect English across every communication channel on Earth and in space. "Humans of Earth. I am Keth Tar, voice of the hegemony. We come as your superiors to offer you a place in galactic civilization." The voice was cold and mechanical, but the words were crystal clear. For 3,000 years, the hegemony has brought peace to this galaxy. 12 great species work together under our guidance. Today, we extend this same offer to humanity. Chen watched the main view screen as one of the alien ships moved closer to Earth. It was easily the size of a small moon. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Your governments will step down. Your military will be disbanded. You will provide us with your genetic material for improvement programs. You will give us access to your planet's resources. In return, we will protect you and guide your development." The message continued. "This offer is generous. Most species require demonstration of our power before they accept reality. We hope humans are wiser." Around the world, government leaders held emergency meetings. On the surface, everything looked panicked and desperate. Presidents called each other. Military commanders shouted orders. News reporters spoke about the end of human independence. But deeper underground, in hidden bases that had been built over the last century, different conversations were happening. General Sarah Rodriguez stood in a command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around her, hundreds of technicians worked at stations filled with equipment that looked nothing like what the aliens had seen on Earth's surface. "Status report," Rodriguez said, calmly. "All ghost fleets are in position," came the reply. "Quantum scramblers are active. The aliens are seeing exactly what we want them to see." Rodriguez smiled grimly. Humanity had learned harsh lessons from their own history. Every time a more advanced civilization met a less advanced one, the result was conquest or destruction. When humans had first detected alien signals 50 years ago, they had made a choice. They would never be the weaker civilization again. The ships the aliens could see around Earth were decoys. Real human technology was hidden in asteroid belts, camouflaged to look like space rocks. Weapons that could crack planets were disguised as communication satellites. The most advanced human fleet in history was spread throughout the solar system, invisible to alien sensors. On Luna Command, Chen received a coded message from Earth. 3 simple words: Protocol 7 active. He turned to his staff. "Gentlemen, ladies, we have our orders. Begin final preparations." The next 72 hours were a careful dance. On the surface, human governments appeared to debate surrender. Some leaders made speeches about the need to be realistic. Others talked about the honor of resistance. All of it was theater for alien ears. Underground, humanity prepared for war. Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's top alien technology expert, studied the readings from the hegemony ships. What he saw surprised him. The alien technology was advanced, but it was old. Really old. The energy signatures showed designs that had not changed in centuries. "They're not innovators," Webb told Chen over a secure channel. "They're maintenance crews. They have powerful technology, but they don't improve it. They don't adapt." This was valuable information. Human technology was newer and cruder, but it was also constantly evolving. Every human weapon system had been updated and improved just in the last 5 years. As the deadline approached, the alien commander Kethtar sent another message. "Humans show wisdom by considering our offer carefully. We detect your orbital platforms powering down weapon systems. This is good. Surrender brings benefits. Resistance brings only death. The aliens were seeing human military satellites going offline just as expected. What they could not see was the real human fleet charging weapon systems that operated on completely different principles. On the final day, Earth's president made a broadcast to both humanity and the aliens. After careful consideration, humanity has reached a decision regarding the hegemony's generous offer. Around the world, humans held their breath. In alien ships, creatures that looked like giant insects listened with satisfaction. Our answer is this: humanity chooses to remain free. The president's words were simple, but they triggered the most complex military operation in human history. Chen gave the order: execute dawn rising. Across the solar system, asteroids that were not asteroids opened up. Space rocks split apart to reveal human warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Weapon systems that had taken 50 years to develop came online in perfect coordination. The aliens barely had time to react. Human ships appeared from nowhere, moving in patterns that made no sense to alien tactics. Where the hegemony expected surrender, they got the concentrated fury of a species that had spent its entire history fighting wars. The first alien ship to die was the one closest to Earth, human. Quantum torpedoes passed right through its shields as if they did not exist. The massive crystal structure cracked and exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from the ground. Kethtar's voice came over the communications again, but now it was full of shock and anger. Impossible. Your technology readings showed primitive development. Chen opened a channel back to the alien commander. His voice was calm and professional. Kethtar, voice of the hegemony. This is Admiral Chen Sato of the Terran Defense Force. You made an error in your calculations. You assumed that because we are new to space, we are weak. You forgot that humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We are very good at it. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, 3 alien superships were destroyed and 2 more were crippled. The rest of the hegemony fleet limped away beyond Pluto's orbit, trying to understand what had gone wrong. As Chen watched the alien ships retreat, he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had passed its first test, but the real war was just starting. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone had said no to the hegemony, and that someone was ready to fight for the right to remain free. The hegemony fleet sat in the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit, licking their wounds. Kethtar stared at damage reports that should not have existed. In 3,000 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever destroyed hegemony capital ships. Explain this, Kethtar demanded from his subordinates. Commander Vexoth, a tall reptilian creature with silver scales, consulted his instruments. The humans used weapons we have never encountered. Their torpedoes passed through our shields using some kind of quantum phase technology, and their ships moved in formations that suggest multidimensional tactical thinking, added science leader Mordak. They fight like they understand hyperspace combat doctrine. Kethtar's insect-like features twisted with anger. Impossible. Our intelligence showed them to be barely capable of system-wide travel. They should not possess such knowledge. What the hegemony did not know was that humanity had been studying alien wreckage for decades. Crashed ships, damaged probes, intercepted communications. Humans had been reverse engineering alien technology and improving on it while still pretending to be primitive. Back in the solar system, Commander Elena Vasquez prepared humanity's response. She stood on the bridge of the Terran battleship Freedom's Edge, the first human vessel designed specifically for interstellar warfare. All ships, this is Vasquez. The alien fleet is regrouping beyond Pluto. We're not going to wait for them to come back. Her fleet of 30 ships moved out from their hiding places among the asteroids. To alien sensors, they appeared suddenly, as if materializing from nothing. Human stealth technology had fooled the hegemony completely. The human ships looked different from anything the galaxy had seen. They were smaller than hegemony vessels, but moved with deadly precision. Their hulls were dark and angular, designed to absorb sensor beams rather than reflect them. As the human fleet approached the alien position, Kethtar received reports that filled him with dread. Commander, the humans are not retreating. They are advancing on our position. What? That makes no tactical sense. We still outnumber them 5-1. Sir, their approach pattern. It's like nothing in our combat databases. They're moving in a formation that seems to anticipate our response before we make it. Kethtar watched the human ships approach. They moved like a school of fish or a flock of birds, each ship connected to the others in a way that made the entire fleet act like one organism. The second battle was even more shocking than the first. Human ships danced around hegemony fire, their adaptive AI systems learning alien tactics in real time and developing counters within minutes. Where the hegemony expected traditional ship-to-ship combat, humans used swarm tactics, electronic warfare, and weapons that changed their behavior based on the target. Vasquez opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Hegemony vessels, this is Commander Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force. You came to our home expecting us to surrender. Instead, we're going to teach you what happens when you threaten human freedom. The lesson was brutal and swift. Human ships targeted alien engines and communication systems, not trying to destroy the entire fleet, but to send a message. When the battle ended, the hegemony had lost 2 more ships, and the rest were damaged badly enough that they would need months of repair. But the real damage was not to ships. It was to the hegemony's reputation. Across the galaxy, species that had been conquered centuries ago received reports of the battle. The news spread through underground networks and hidden communication channels. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone had fought the hegemony and won. Not once, but twice. On the planet Zealand Prime, a world conquered by the hegemony 2 centuries ago, young Zelani citizens gathered in secret to hear the reports. The humans destroyed 5 hegemony capital ships, whispered Carthon, a Zelani engineer. 5. That's more than we lost in our entire war of conquest. But how? Asked his friend Velana. The hegemony told us resistance was impossible. They said their technology was supreme. Old Morthek, a Zelani who remembered the time before the conquest, spoke quietly. Perhaps the hegemony lied. Perhaps they are not as powerful as they claim. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The hegemony's greatest weapon had always been fear. Now that fear was cracking. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb was making disturbing discoveries as he examined captured hegemony technology. What he found changed everything humans thought they knew about the galaxy. General Rodriguez, you need to see this, Webb said over a secure channel. Rodriguez arrived at Webb's laboratory within an hour. What did you find, Doctor? Webb pointed to a display showing the internal structure of a hegemony weapon system. This technology is old. Really old. Some of these components show design elements that are over 1,000 years old. Meaning what? Meaning the hegemony hasn't innovated in centuries. They've been using the same weapons, the same tactics, the same technologies for generations. They've become comfortable, lazy. Rodriguez understood immediately. They stopped improving because they never had to. No one ever fought back hard enough to force them to adapt. Exactly. But we're different. Human military technology has been constantly evolving for centuries. We upgrade our weapon systems every few years. We develop new tactics for every conflict. We never stop improving because we never stop fighting. This revelation changed human strategy completely. They were not fighting a superior enemy. They were fighting an enemy that had become weak through easy victories. The news got better. Analysis of hegemony communications revealed cracks in their alliance. The 12 member species were not united. Some were questioning why a primitive species had succeeded where their advanced civilizations had failed. The Vorthak are demanding answers, reported Intelligence Officer Captain Lisa Park. The other species are asking why they need hegemony protection if humans can defeat hegemony fleets. Rodriguez smiled. Then we're going to give them more questions to ask. The third battle came when the hegemony sent reinforcements. A massive fleet of over 100 ships led by War Prime Theknoth, the greatest military commander in hegemony history. This time, humanity was ready with a surprise that shattered alien expectations completely. Human ships equipped with new quantum displacement drives appeared inside the hegemony formation, having somehow bypassed all their sensors and defenses. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that was already among them, using tactics that turned their own formation against them. Impossible! Teknoth screamed as human ships materialized around his flagship. How did they penetrate our perimeter? The answer was simple but devastating. Humans had not just copied alien technology, they had improved it beyond alien comprehension. Human quantum drives could move ships through dimensions the hegemony did not even know existed. The battle lasted 8 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony's greatest fleet. Teknoth's flagship was captured intact, along with its commander and most of his senior staff. As Vasquez stood on the bridge of the captured alien vessel, she knew everything had changed. Humanity had not just defended their home system. They had proven that the hegemony could be beaten by anyone willing to fight smart instead of fight fair. The galaxy would never be the same. For 3,000 years, the hegemony had ruled through fear and superior technology. Now, a species barely out of their home system had shown that neither was enough against determination, innovation, and the refusal to accept defeat. The age of hegemony dominance was ending. The age of human influence was about to begin. Captain James Morrison stood on the bridge of the Pioneer's Hope, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. 6 months had passed since the great victory over the hegemony fleets, and now humans were ready to take the war to the enemy's home territory. Jump calculations complete. Captain, reported Navigation Officer Lieutenant Sarah Chen. Ready to enter hyperspace on your command. Morrison looked out at the stars one last time from Earth's solar system. When he returned, humanity would either have new allies in their fight for freedom, or they would have learned just how big their enemy really was. Execute, Jump, Morrison commanded. The Pioneer's Hope slipped into hyperspace using modified hegemony technology that human engineers had improved. Where alien ships took days to travel between star systems, the human vessel could make the same journey in hours. 3 days later, they arrived at Zealand Prime, homeworld of the Zelani species. What Morrison saw there made him angry enough to fight. The planet that had once been green and beautiful was now a giant mining operation. Huge machines stripped minerals from the surface while Zelani workers labored in conditions that barely kept them alive. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were gone, replaced by industrial complexes and resource processing plants. My God, whispered Morrison's first officer, Commander Rebecca Torres. They've turned an entire civilization into slave labor. Morrison opened a communication channel to the planet's surface, using Zelani language patterns they had learned from intercepted transmissions. This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Pioneer's Hope. We seek to speak with Zelani leadership. The response came quickly, filled with fear and confusion. Human vessel, this is Governor Thekval of the Mining Administration. Humans are not permitted in this system. Leave immediately or face hegemony punishment. Governor, we've already faced hegemony punishment. We beat them. Twice. We're here to offer you something the hegemony never has. A choice. Silence stretched across the communication channel. Then quietly, what do you mean you beat them? Over the next hour, Morrison's crew transmitted the recordings of the battles in Earth's solar system. They showed the proud hegemony fleets being destroyed by human tactics and technology. They proved that the supposedly invincible aliens could be defeated. The effect on Zealand Prime was immediate and electric. Within hours, Zelani workers were abandoning their posts to gather around communication terminals. Within days, underground resistance groups that had hidden for centuries began to surface. Within a week, the planet was in open rebellion. Morrison established humanity's first off-world base in the ruins of an ancient Zelani city. But unlike the hegemony, humans did not come as conquerors. They came as teachers. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster, a specialist in guerrilla warfare, began training Zelani fighters in human military tactics. The hegemony expects you to fight like them, Foster explained to a group of eager Zelani recruits. Big formations, direct attacks, traditional battle lines. That's why they always win. She pointed to a tactical display showing human battle formations. We fight different. We hit and run. We use the enemy's size against them. We make them fight our war, not theirs. Every human soldier learns this. The enemy gets to choose the battlefield, but you get to choose how the battle is fought. The lessons spread quickly. Within months, Zilani resistance fighters were using human-taught tactics to destroy hegemony supply lines and liberate mining facilities. But the real change was deeper than military tactics. For the first time in centuries, the Zilani remembered what it felt like to hope. Elder Morthek, one of the few Zilani old enough to remember life before the conquest, spoke to Morrison during a quiet moment between battles. "Human Morrison, my people had forgotten that we were ever free. The hegemony told us that independence was a childish dream, that only through their guidance could we survive in the galaxy." Morrison sat with the elderly alien, sharing a drink that tasted like cinnamon and starlight. "They lied to you. Every species has the right to choose their own path among the stars." "Yes," Morthek agreed. "But it took humans to remind us of this truth." The rebellion spread faster than anyone expected. News of human victories and Zilani resistance reached other conquered worlds through networks the hegemony thought they had destroyed. Species that had not fought back in centuries began to remember their warrior traditions. The Catherian Collective, enslaved for 800 years, began sabotaging the shipyards where they were forced to build hegemony vessels. The Altarian Republic, reduced to a single city on their homeworld, started broadcasting calls for freedom across their former territory. Dr. Elena Martinez, a human sociologist studying alien cultures, made a remarkable discovery while working with liberated Zilani. "Captain, you need to see this," she told Morrison. The Zilani had technologies before the conquest that were actually more advanced than current hegemony systems. The aliens didn't just conquer them, they made them forget what they were capable of. Morrison studied the ancient Zilani designs that Martinez had recovered. Weapon systems that could manipulate gravity, ships that could phase through solid matter, technologies that made even human improvements look primitive. They were deliberately kept ignorant, Morrison realized. The hegemony didn't just want resources and labor. They wanted to make sure no one could ever challenge them again. This revelation changed everything about humanity's war strategy. They were not just fighting to free conquered peoples. They were fighting to restore civilizations that had been deliberately crippled. When the hegemony finally responded to the growing rebellions, their reaction was swift and brutal. Admiral Cathtar, still smarting from his defeats at Earth, brought a massive fleet to Zealand Prime with orders to destroy every living thing on the planet. "If we cannot rule them, we will make an example of them," Cathtar announced to his fleet. But when the hegemony ships arrived at Zealand Prime, they found something they had never encountered before: a coordinated defense by multiple species fighting together. Human ships fought alongside Zilani vessels that used recovered ancient technology. Catherian saboteurs had planted bombs on hegemony supply ships. Altarian hackers disrupted alien communication networks. For the first time in galactic history, the hegemony faced an enemy that included their own former subjects. The Battle of Zealand Prime lasted 3 days and ended with the complete destruction of Cathtar's fleet. The alien commander himself was captured by Zilani fighters who had learned to fight from human teachers. As Morrison stood in the ruins of the hegemony command center, surrounded by celebrating humans and aliens, he knew they had crossed a line from which there could be no return. "Commander Torres, send a message back to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them the war is no longer about defending our solar system. It's about liberating the entire galaxy." The message would take weeks to reach Earth, but when it did, humanity would begin the largest military operation in their history. Not conquest, but liberation. Not empire, but alliance. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years by keeping their subjects weak and divided. Now humans had shown these subjects something revolutionary. They were not weak, and they did not have to be divided. The galaxy was waking up from a long nightmare. And humanity, the species that had refused to submit, was leading them toward the dawn of a new age. 2 years after first contact, Admiral Chen Sato stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Humanity Rising, watching the largest space battle in galactic history unfold around him. The third battle of Kepler 442 would determine whether the galaxy remained under hegemony control or entered a new age of freedom. "Status report," Chen commanded calmly, even as enemy fire lit up the darkness around his ship. "We have confirmation from all Allied fleets," reported Communications Officer Major Lisa Park. 17 species are fighting alongside us. The hegemony is facing the united forces of everyone they've oppressed." Chen smiled grimly. This was exactly what humanity had hoped to achieve. They had not sought to replace the hegemony as galactic rulers. Instead, they had awakened something the aliens feared most, the desire for freedom in every thinking being. Across the battle zone, ships from dozens of worlds fought side by side. Zilani vessels with their recovered gravity weapons fought alongside human quantum ships. Catherian fighters used their incredible speed while Altarian heavy cruisers provided covering fire. Each species brought their unique strengths to the fight, but the hegemony had also learned from their defeats. This time they had brought everything: 200 capital ships, 1,000 support vessels, and weapons they had kept in reserve for 3,000 years. "Admiral," called out Tactical Officer Commander Sarah Torres, "the enemy is deploying something new. Energy readings are off the scale." Chen watched as the hegemony's command ship, a crystalline monster the size of a small moon, began to glow with internal light. Ancient weapons that had conquered 100 civilizations powered up for the first time in centuries. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy is about to show us their best technology. Time to show them ours." What happened next changed warfare forever. The human fleet did not respond with bigger weapons or stronger shields. Instead, they did what humans did best. They adapted. Every lesson learned from 2 years of fighting was put into practice at once. Human ships shared tactical data instantly with their alien allies. Combat AI systems that had been learning hegemony patterns for months suddenly revealed vulnerabilities the enemy did not know they had. Commander Elena Vasquez, now leading the human fast attack fleet, spoke to her pilots over the communication system. "Remember your training. We don't fight their war, we make them fight ours. Every engagement is a lesson for our allies. Every victory shows the galaxy what freedom looks like." The battle raged for 18 hours, but it was not just a military engagement. It was a demonstration of everything that made the human approach to warfare revolutionary. Where the hegemony fought as separate fleets coordinated by central command, the human alliance fought as a single organism. Information flowed instantly between all ships. Tactics developed by one species were immediately adopted by others. Innovation happened in real time across the entire fleet. The turning point came when Colonel Maria Santos led a combined human-Zilani assault team against the hegemony's mobile command base. Their mission was not to destroy it, but to capture the databanks that controlled the Empire's secret operations. What they found in those databanks horrified even battle-hardened soldiers. "Admiral Chen, you need to see this," Santos reported over secure communication. "The genetic modification facilities, the resource extraction quotas, the population control measures. It's worse than we thought." The data revealed the true extent of hegemony control. They had not just conquered species. They had systematically altered them over generations to make them compliant and specialized. The proud warrior race of the Catherian had been genetically modified to be better factory workers. The brilliant Altarian scientists had been changed to reduce their creativity and increase their obedience. "They've been lobotomizing entire civilizations," Santos continued, her voice shaking with anger. "For 3,000 years they've been turning thinking beings into biological tools." Chen ordered the information broadcast across all allied frequencies immediately. The effect was electric. Species that had fought reluctantly, still afraid of their former masters, suddenly fought with the fury of beings who had discovered they had been robbed of their very nature. The Zilani, learning that their peaceful disposition was the result of genetic tampering, threw themselves into battle with recovered ferocity. The Catherians, realizing their warrior culture had been stolen from them, began fighting with tactics that amazed even human observers. But the most important change was in the humans themselves. They had begun this war to defend Earth. Now they understood they were fighting to restore the stolen heritage of dozens of civilizations. "All ships," Chen broadcast to the entire Allied fleet, "we are not just fighting for our freedom. We are fighting to give back to every species what the hegemony stole from them. The right to be who they were meant to be." The final phase of the battle began when the hegemony's ancient superweapons finally activated. Beams of energy that could crack planets reached out toward the Allied fleet. Missiles that bent space and time streaked through the darkness. For a moment, it seemed like the hegemony's vast technological advantage would carry the day. Then humanity played their final card. Execute Protocol Unity. Chen ordered. Across the Allied fleet, every ship began broadcasting on the same frequency, not weapons or sensors, but something more powerful: information. Every tactical innovation, every technological improvement, every breakthrough that humans had achieved in their war against the hegemony was shared instantly with every Allied vessel. The result was miraculous. Solani ships suddenly sprouted human-designed weapon systems. Catherian fighters began using Altarian defensive shields. Technologies that had taken months to develop were implemented across the fleet in minutes. The hegemony found themselves facing not just an Allied fleet, but a constantly evolving organism that learned and adapted faster than their ancient weapons could respond. The battle ended when the hegemony command ship, overwhelmed by coordinated attacks from 17 different species using tactics it could not counter, finally surrendered. As Chen watched enemy ships powering down their weapons across the battlespace, he knew they had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history, not the defeat of one empire by another, but the birth of something entirely new. Communication, send a message to all hegemony vessels, Chen ordered. This is Admiral Chen Sato of the Terran Defense Coalition. You are defeated, but you are not our enemies. Any species that chooses freedom over domination is welcome to join us. Any being that rejects tyranny has a place in our alliance. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hegemony ships began defecting by the dozen. Species that had served as enforcers for 3,000 years suddenly remembered what it felt like to choose their own destiny. The third battle of Kepler 442 was over. The hegemony as a galactic empire had effectively ceased to exist. But more importantly, the galaxy had discovered something it had lost long ago: the idea that every thinking being deserved the chance to determine their own fate among the stars. As Chen looked out at the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels, he realized humanity had accomplished something beyond their wildest dreams. They had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it. 5 years had passed since the aliens first demanded humanity's surrender. Marshal Sarah Rodriguez stood in the observatory of New Geneva Station, humanity's first major construction outside the solar system, watching ships from 47 different species work together to build the largest research facility in galactic history. The transformation had been incredible. Where once the hegemony had maintained tribute extraction facilities, now thriving colonies pushed the boundaries of science and exploration. Species that had been kept ignorant for centuries were rediscovering technologies their ancestors had created before the conquest. Status report from the outer colonies, requested Rodriguez from her aide. Captain Jennifer Walsh, all green, Marshal. The Zolani have successfully restored their gravity manipulation technology. The Catherians have rebuilt their first new starship in 800 years. The Altarians just announced a breakthrough in quantum communication that could connect the entire galaxy instantly. Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. This was what victory looked like. Not the defeat of enemies, but the restoration of hope to beings who had forgotten what freedom meant. But the war was not completely over. The core hegemony worlds, led by the original Vorthak Imperium, had retreated to their fortress systems and refused to surrender. They possessed weapons and technologies from the galaxy's ancient past, artifacts from civilizations that had existed before even the hegemony's rise to power. Marshal, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chen, Walsh reported. Rodriguez accepted the communication. Chen's face appeared on the screen, showing the strain of 5 years of constant warfare. Sarah, we have a problem. The Vorthak have activated something from their deepest vaults. Energy readings suggest weapons that predate known galactic civilization by millions of years. How bad? Rodriguez asked simply. Bad enough that they think they can win back everything they've lost. They're calling it the final gambit. Rodriguez understood. Desperate enemies were the most dangerous kind. The Vorthak were going to use weapons that might destroy half the galaxy just to maintain their empire. Admiral, prepare all available fleets. If they want to fight with ancient weapons, we'll show them what modern thinking can accomplish. The final confrontation came at Vorthak Prime, the original homeworld of the species that had created the hegemony. The planet itself was a fortress, surrounded by defensive systems that had been built over 3,000 years. But the fleet that approached it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships flew alongside vessels from dozens of worlds. Each species contributed their unique abilities to a coordinated assault that treated the enemy's greatest strength, their unified command structure, as their greatest weakness. Dr. Elena Chen, now leading a joint human-alien archaeological team, made a discovery that changed everything about the final battle. Marshal Rodriguez, we've found something in the ancient databases, Chen reported from the research vessel Discovery. The weapons the Vorthak are using, they're not Vorthak at all. They belong to the predecessors, a civilization that vanished millions of years ago. What happened to them? That's the important part. They didn't die out. They transcended. The entire predecessor civilization evolved beyond physical existence, but they left behind a test. Rodriguez felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of test? They wanted to see if their inheritors could prove worthy of true galactic civilization. The test was simple. Could the galaxy species unite voluntarily, or would they only work together through conquest and domination? The implications were staggering. The hegemony had been failing the test for 3,000 years. By keeping species divided and oppressed, they had prevented the galaxy from achieving the unity the predecessors had hoped for. But humanity, in refusing to submit and then helping others find their freedom, had started something different. The Terran Accord was not built on conquest but on choice. Species joined because they wanted to, not because they had to. Doctor, can we communicate this to the Vorthak? Make them understand what they've been preventing? We can try, Marshal, but they may be too committed to their old ways to listen. The final battle began with the Vorthak, deploying weapons that could unmake matter itself. Beams of energy that deleted everything they touched reached across space toward the Allied fleet. Missiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously sought out their targets. For a moment, it seemed like the ancient technology would triumph over modern innovation. Then something unprecedented happened. The Allied fleet did not respond with greater weapons or stronger defenses. Instead, they did something the predecessors had been waiting millions of years to see. Every species in the Alliance, working together by choice rather than compulsion, began broadcasting a single coordinated message, not to the Vorthak but to the predecessor artifacts themselves. The message was simple: we are ready. The effect was immediate and miraculous. The ancient weapons began shutting down, not because they were defeated but because they recognized what they had been programmed to wait for. The galaxy had finally produced a civilization worthy of the predecessor's legacy. Vorthak Prime found itself defenseless, not because of military defeat, but because the test they had been failing for millennia was finally being passed by someone else. The surrender, when it came, was not bitter but amazed. Emperor Thekvorth, the last ruler of the hegemony, contacted Rodriguez personally. Human Marshal, we do not understand what has happened. Our greatest weapon simply stopped. Rodriguez's response was gentle but firm. Your weapons stopped because they were never meant to maintain an empire built on oppression. They were meant to wait for a galaxy that could unite through choice instead of conquest. And you have created this? We started it. But every species that chose freedom over submission helped create it, including yours if you want to join us. The offer of membership in the Terran Accord to the former hegemony species shocked many, but it proved the fundamental principle that had guided humanity from the beginning. Freedom was for everyone, even former enemies. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes of the hegemony was something entirely new. The Terran Accord grew not through conquest but through invitation. Species joined because they wanted to contribute to something greater than themselves. Research stations throughout the galaxy began unlocking technologies that had been hidden for millions of years. The predecessors had left behind not just weapons but tools for exploration, discovery, and growth. Faster than light travel that could cross the galaxy in days, communication systems that connected every world instantly, technologies that could terraform dead worlds or heal damaged ecosystems. But the greatest gift was not technological. It was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from domination, but from cooperation. That diversity made civilizations stronger, not weaker. That freedom was not just a human ideal, but a universal one. Rodriguez stood in the same observatory where she had begun planning humanity's expansion 5 years earlier. Now she looked out at a galaxy transformed. Ships from hundreds of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the hegemony. Former slaves were becoming explorers. Former subjects were becoming partners. Marshal, Captain Walsh reported, were receiving the final survey reports from the Outer Rim. The last of the hegemony resource extraction facilities have been converted to research stations. The galaxy is officially free. Rodriguez smiled. Humanity had begun this war to defend one small blue world. They were ending it having helped liberate an entire galaxy. The aliens had expected submission from Earth's children. Instead, they had received something far more dangerous. Proof that every thinking being in the universe deserved the chance to reach for the stars as equals. The age of empire was over. The age of alliance had begun, and at the heart of it all, the species that had refused to kneel continued to stand tall, not as conquerors but as the guardians of a simple, revolutionary idea, that freedom was the birthright of every being capable of dreaming of the stars. Humanity had not just survived first contact. They had used it to give the galaxy something it had been missing for millions of years: hope for a future where every species could write their own destiny among the endless sea of stars.